We now are getting reports that none other than the king of the symbiotes, Knull, will be the main villain for Spider-Man 4, set after Avengers Doomsday and in between Avengers Secret Wars. The latest trailer for Venom The Last Dance has revealed that Knull is going to not only be a key player in Venom's final solo outing for now, but will actually be the overarching antagonist of the project, the puppet master pulling the strings as he sends battalions to Earth in order to hunt down a rogue Clintar. The inclusion of Knull seems like it would have ramifications that affect not just the future of the Sony Spider-Verse, but provides us hints as what is to come in the mainline MCU, potentially impacting the future of Doomsday and Secret Wars. So today, let's break it all down. Let's explore what Knull's introduction means and how he could be the main villain of Spider-Man 4. The report we're going to be dissecting today is from My Time to Shine Hello, who claims that Knull is going to be the principal antagonist of Spider-Man 4. This fits into what we currently know about the fourth Spider-Man outing, and more specifically, where it's going to take place. Feige describes Spider-Man 4 as being located on an alien world in another universe, and the predominant theory right now is that this will be Battleworld, which is likely going to be constructed by Dr. Doom at the end of Avengers Doomsday. In the comics, Battleworld was a hub of multiversal survivors who were able to escape the destruction of every other reality and timeline. And if Knull truly is the villain, then it would mean and confirm that the Sony universe is set to be caught in the crossfire of the MCU and the collapse of the multiverse itself. If Knull is one of the survivors, and he comes into conflict with Peter Parker of Battleworld, then it almost certainly confirms the presence of a symbiote arc in the near future concerning Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Knull is the god of the symbiotes, and he crafted them out of the inking black nothingness which predated the era of the cosmos. In Venom The Last Dance, it seems like he will be hunting down rogue symbiotes, including the one currently bonded with Eddie Brock. So if Venom and Knull are currently opposed, and Spider-Man is set to face off against Knull in Spider-Man 4, then it stands to reason that his objectives with Venom may be aligned, and that they may actually find themselves on the same side in Spider-Man 4. But this is a theory. For years, fans have been yearning for a rematch between Peter Parker and Eddie Brock in live action, seeing as the last version of this fight was in Spider-Man 3, which is unfortunately remembered for its lackluster portrayal of one of Spider-Man's most popular villains. Since Venom is in the Sonyverse, and he is less of a villain in reality and more of an anti-hero, and since they're both going to be united against Knull, fans get to see the two of them share the screen, but we would like to see a full-fledged rivalry for a lot longer. This does leave us to wonder exactly what Knull's intentions and objectives are. In the comics, they're usually fairly straightforward. Knull existed in the primordial void that occupied the space between the 6th and the 7th cosmos. Essentially, after the 6th cosmos died, there was an infinite void of darkness, and this is where Knull made his home. When the Celestials began to forge the 7th cosmos, they breathed light and life into the multiverse, which Knull was not happy with. Knull wanted to continue his reign of unending darkness, and he forged a series of living weapons in order to achieve this goal. The first of these weapons was known as the Necro Sword, which we know in the mainline MCU was in the hands of Gore the God Butcher before he was ultimately killed. But he also perfected these living weapons. They eventually became the symbiotes that we know and love today. All Knull wants is to expand his kingdom of darkness, and Battleworld may just be the perfect place to do it in the MCU, which takes inspiration from the comic counterpart. The reason we say this is because Battleworld was the final corner of life in the multiverse after every other timeline had been eradicated by a series of incursions. For Knull, this means that this void had effortlessly returned, and this would make Knull the most powerful that he could theoretically be, since we know that he derives his power from eldritch darkness. In the MCU, if there is anything but the void left, then it means that Knull will only need to snuff out Battleworld in order to peacefully return to the void that he came from, and he would finally complete his unending kingdom of darkness. This does leave us to wonder, however, why a threat of this caliber and this magnitude would not draw the attention of Dr. Doom, whether or not he is in the God Emperor form or not. Regardless of how Doom rose to power, and if he is at the strongest, then this is still his kingdom, and if it is being threatened by an outside entity, logically, Knull's plan would stand against the plan of Dr. Doom, and we could see a Doom versus Knull project and not just a Spider-Man 4 project. Dr. Doom could play a larger role in Spider-Man 4 than we currently know. This may indicate that Spider-Man's involvement with Knull could be a bit more personal, and thanks to Knull's origin, we seem to have a good idea of what this could be. Since Knull and presumably Venom are going to be involved, it seems like Peter will have his own MCU Symbiote arc, which we touched on a minute ago, only this time, it could be much larger in scale than we've ever seen before. Most iterations of Peter Parker's symbiote arc show him in the midst of his day-to-day life when the symbiote eventually gets involved. But originally, he was first introduced to the suit in the Secret War story, and this was the debut of the black suit in the comics. Other Spider-Man projects like the Raimi films, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and the 90s animated series never had the full potential to do a completely comic-faithful adaptation of Secret Wars, which Tom Holland may be finally getting here. If Knull is still hunting rogue symbiotes though, then it stands to reason that an iteration of the Venom symbiote may also be trying to escape him, since we know that symbiotes have a multiversal link, hinting that Knull himself may be a multiversal entity rather than someone that has variants. The reason we know this is Venom says that symbiotes can share knowledge across universes, indicating that perhaps different symbiotes from across the multiverse all come from one creator. It's unlikely that the Venom symbiote from Sony will abandon Eddie and leap for Peter, so it's probably going to be either a multiversal variant of the symbiote or a section of it like we saw at the end of No Way Home. What's even more captivating about this though is Peter's own history with the symbiote. We know that the symbiote brings out a person's darker impulses, and for Peter, this led to finally leaning into a true strength of what Spider-Man can offer. Peter Parker always has to work to keep himself controlled, because if he's not careful, he can seriously hurt or even kill someone with his strength alone, even if he doesn't ever mean to. It took him a long time to learn how to pull his punches and ensure that even though he's getting into fights, he still doesn't want anyone to get maimed or seriously injured. Eddie though, doesn't seem to have this problem in the Venom films at all. Sometimes Venom is even allowed to eat the heads of malicious criminals, but he isn't personally affected in the same way that Peter is. We don't see him becoming angrier or more violent like the symbiote is known to do, and Eddie doesn't seem to have the same level of dark impulses that Peter does, at least not in this universe. Even though Eddie doesn't have the experience of the symbiote corroding his mind like this, we do know of someone who does, and that's Tobey Maguire's version that he met in Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man 3 showed this version of Peter going through the exact same thing, and if Tobey Spider-Man is alive and well in Secret Wars, then he may very well be present in Battleworld for Spider-Man 4. This does bring up another flaw in the MCU's version of Spider-Man, however, his reliance on mentors. Tom Holland has played Spider-Man in 6 films now, and every time he seems to have some sort of guiding hand rather than being allowed to grow into his own identity. The ending of No Way Home promised us that Peter would now be on his own, and he would now be able to explore what it means for him to be a true hero without having someone else to look up to, having to look within. Introducing Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man as a mentor figure would be poignant, but it would also continue the trend of not letting the MCU Spider-Man grow his own wings. We already know that he's probably going to be incredibly conflicted when he sees Dr. Doom, which will play into the themes of his mentorship even further, so we will have to wait to see exactly what Marvel wants to do with him going forward, and more importantly, what Sony will allow or push back on. We've known that Marvel has been adamant that Spider-Man take a more grounded approach going forward, and it's Sony who's the one that's pushing the multiverse angle in order to incorporate more of their projects and their characters. After all, it's Venom and Knull that they're showcasing in Venom: The Last Dance, and fitting these characters into the multiversal saga will help Sony so much more than it will help Marvel. So Sony will ultimately probably continue pushing for their inclusion into the MCU. What this means for Spider-Man after Secret Wars, however, remains to be seen, but including Knull as a main villain is certainly an exciting choice. This is a villain who is leagues beyond most of Spider-Man's rogues gallery and is one of the largest caliber, so it will be very interesting to see a Spider-Man 4 and a Venom movie connect with Knull at the helm. But anyway friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on this rumor that Knull could be the villain for Spider-Man 4 and it could take place potentially on Battleworld? What would you like to see from Spider-Man 4, and is there another villain that you would like to see more? As always, Hulk smash that subscribe button for more Marvel lore, and have a great day.